I am not looking forward to this at all. Now that the creative setup and the gaming setup are actually coming along rather nicely, it's time to cable manage. Dang it! Okay, so big goal this weekend. I have to just structuralize, organize a little bit over the last couple of years since we've made so many different setups. And like that's like one of the things that we do on this channel. I've really stepped away from caring about cable management. I'm here to have a realistic setup, a cool, effective, like neat to look at, but realistic setup. And realistically, with most things, you're gonna see some cables here, and it just is what it is. You gotta get over it, forehead. But on the flip side, I've gotten a little lazy. So I'm just gonna do a better job at cleaning things up. Right now, it's actually not looking too bad. When it comes to the creative set, oh, I gotta put some socks on. That's for the OnlyFans content. Anyways, when it comes to the creative setup, where my M1 Max MacBook Pro is, I got a couple things that I just kind of need to finish up. First and foremost, I did switch from the Ergo chair to the Titan chair. For some reason, I was noticing like lower back problems and acid reflux kicking up when I would sit in this for long durations. As you guys know, throughout the years, I've been a really big fan of the Secret Lab chairs. These are just comfortable for me. My back feels good. So a couple things I need to do here is I just need to maintain some of these cables. I already have a cable rack under there. I just need to get some hooks and get some more like routing and keep cables in a specific direction. And then on top of that, I also have to stabilize this desk. So what I gotta do is I gotta attach a piece of wood down there. And then I wanna also just clean up that cable. Once again, just run it through there. And then coming into the game room, which this place is a mess as is right now, but for the most part, I have a lot of this stuff organized because most of the cables go in this tray back here. But as you see, I have like some cables that aren't long enough to be routed around things. So for example, this display port isn't long enough to go up the arm and then down and then plug into the computer. So right now I have a couple of these cables just hanging out. And to be fairly honest, when you're looking at the setup as a whole, you really don't notice them. It's more of like a me thing. Like I definitely notice them. So it's just something simple that I definitely gotta get cleaned up. I just got to get some longer cables essentially this weekend. Also, yes, a lot of people informed me that Secret Lab has come out with an extension for their gaming desk. As of right now, I have no plans of getting that. They have not reached out to me, but we will see where things go in the future. Also, to make this desk work, because I do like the size of it, I mounted the monitors on the wall to give more real estate on there. I was actually really surprised at how many people in the review video was like, you have more than enough room on the desk. Once you put that on there and get this mic in the way, like you don't really have that much room. Not enough to justify $500 to $800 at the very least in my opinion. But it is a really good desk. It's super convenient and easy. That's why I put it back in here. Okay, so let's talk cable management and how I am cleaning this all up today, at least in my creative setup. Also, for the occasion, I snagged a can of the severed lime from Liquid Death. If you guys don't know, once again, not sponsored by Liquid Death, should be. Let's just grow up a little bit here. But not only do they do just regular mountain water, they also do carbonated water and flavored carbonated water. And I've never had the lime, so this is a taste test exclusive. Oh my God, that is so, Megan! Come here and try this. This is it, Chief.
Is it better than the berry?
It's way better than the berry.
Well, I do love me citrus and lime, so. Yeah.
By the way, Megan has really bad, she has no enthusiasm.
Thank you, bye.
What? Well, that's mean. Anyways, before I was so rudely interrupted, so the goal for my creative setup is to give somewhat of a floating look for the desk. I actually didn't want to mount the desk to the wall for the time being, and I also didn't want to shape the L shape into the desk, again for the time being, because we all know how much I like changing desk setup. Long term, if I like this setup, I'd like to get rid of those legs down there and mount it to the wall so that way it does give that floating look. So that way there's only drawers here and over there. But I feel like every setup, depending on what you're going for, has different ways that you would like to cable manage. And considering the fact that this is not like a gaming setup or a PC setup, like a custom built PC to where I have a lot more cables, the only cable that I have coming from my MacBook is just one USB-C lightning cable. I really wanted to make sure that the cables were clean with this. And since this creative setup is only powered by a MacBook with that one cable, it made it a lot easier, because at the end of the day, the only reason I have cables going down below the desk is to power the monitor, which powers the MacBook, and then the two speakers, a preamp, and a light. So those are the only reasons that I have cables coming down. I've even debated for a cleaner aesthetic in here to just get rid of the monitors and do all my work via headphones. But let's be honest, there's nothing better in your studio space than cranking up two amazing studio monitor speakers and just jamming out to the new Post Malone album. And if you haven't heard Post Malone's new album, what are you even doing wasting your time watching today's video? Please leave and go watch it right now. Anyways, to achieve what I was particularly looking for in today's cable management setup is I wanted to have just simplicity, something that I could come and remove cables if I need to, not doing stuff like zip ties or more permanent cable management, but more or less having clips and slots and hooks to be able to remove things if I need to, because once again, you guys know that I like to experiment with a lot of stuff. And another goal to get that floating look right there with the L shape is I need to stabilize it a little bit more with the back desk on the wall, because I am only using one leg on the L shape to give it that open look. I basically didn't want anything to look cluttered. So the items that I used for today's cable management was a piece of 2x4 to be able to stabilize that extension from the L shape without having an extra leg. Essentially what I'm doing here is I'm just connecting the 2x4 to the desk that is more sturdy and extending it out to the desk that I need to have a little bit more stability. And I'm simply screwing them into each desk so that way I don't have to have a leg out in the open on the L shape. Moving on from the L shape extension, I'm using these awesome little like zip connector hooks that can be easily removed. You peel and stick this backside onto the desk. I go a step beyond and fasten a screw into the desk. You can get any of these at your local hardware store or online on Amazon. And essentially what I'm using these for is on the edge of the desk to bring down cables, or like two cables at a time, like each speaker cable, for example. So that way I have more stability coming behind whatever object has cables coming down. So that way cables aren't going on either side of the speaker. And then one of my favorite simple cable management hacks is these little screw-in hooks. These things are just super easy to screw in by hand. They screw into wood, they screw into fake wood, plastic. It's very simple to find these. They're very affordable. But what I love utilizing these for is just kind of creating a path with specific cables. So that way, once again, I know exactly what cable is coming from what device and leading to what direction or plug-in. So I utilize these straps to kind of create a pathway onto the desk, and I utilize the hooks to kind of create those highways into whatever devices are mounted underneath the desk or wherever I'm gonna store the cables, like on the cable rack that's underneath the desk. After I've kind of organized everything and ran pathways, this is where I utilize these Velcro straps to kind of tuck and hide cables. There are some people that obsess about cable management and they like to have every little cable organized and tucked away in their own area, or they don't like to have like a spider web of cables. I could care less if all the cables under the desk are organized to wherever they're going, and I can see like, okay, this cable comes here, and I can simply pop that cable off the hook or unattach this little zip hook here. If I do all that correctly, I'm completely okay with taking just the extra hanging cables and just nicely wrapping them up together and just using a Velcro wrap to put it into the cable management rack that's underneath the desk. Again, back in the day, I used to use separate strips and ports and even screw holes and pathways into the desk because I wanted everything to like have its own path. Like each each monitor speaker would have its own path going into the power supply under the desk. Or my gaming monitors would seriously have like a path for power supplies, but then would also have other paths for like the USB cable, especially when I was using a dual PC setup. Realistically, throughout the years, I learned that this just overcomplicated things when I would want to change things out, or if God forbid some parts went wrong and I didn't know what it was, so I had to troubleshoot by going and unplugging certain cables in certain areas. So my goal with this was to have the ability to, one, be organized, but to have overall easy access getting into these cables if I need to. One thing I just wanted to kind of touch base on with this stuff is the hardware that I use. Nowadays, I use some of the cheapest options to cable manage, and I just don't try to overthink things. At the end of the day, I'm just simply taking a cable and I don't want it to hang down, or I don't want to create a spider web of cables underneath to where it's like super confusing and just nasty to look at. All I or you are trying to do with cable managing is bring cables from a device and just organize them under the desk, which means you don't need to buy like advertised gamer, this is how you cable manage your gaming setup, you have to have these parts. You really can just kind of think outside the box a little bit, use like a zip tie and a screw at the end of the day. Like I've actually seen people do that really well. They use a thick zip tie and just screw the zip tie into the desk, and then that way they have just that particular access point instead of buying these big strips or these like cable management organizers that are marketed and cost more, even though they essentially do the same things. One thing I've always been about on this channel, it's the reason why I showed you guys making these setups, is you can do a lot if you just go around and look at places, especially in your local hardware or crafting store. There's so many little tools and items that you can utilize to make it effective for you and your setup. So everybody, it's time, we gotta clean up the cables a little bit. Some of you guys have been slacking a lot more than me, but I've been slacking too. So that's why I had to clean up these cables this weekend. But now it's time for you to go to your local store and find some things to get creative, maybe on a budget for you. Clean that dang setup. It looks like shit. Okay, fun stuff. Where's my liquid death?